The Dodgers figure that with their starting pitchers not quite back, why not get rid of the only one they can depend on? A scribe ponders which team had the worst offseason, the Lakers or the Clippers, and the Kings' future in goal might be good, but the present, it sucks. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. And good Lord, is it morning out here. It is July 23rd, 2024, back in Southern Illinois, spreading the gospel of LA sports. And if you like being in the know about LA, click the like button. Click the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist, and by all means comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. Dodgers 3, San Francisco 2. You know, for all the struggle going into the All-Star break, the Dodgers have now won 4 consecutive games and lead the NL West by 8.5. Teoscar Hernandez drives in all 3 runs. Meanwhile, today, San Francisco is still in town to play the Dodgers at 7. Landon Knack is 1-2 with a 3.23 ERA. Jordan Hicks 4-6 with a 3.79 ERA. What do you say we get to the news? You know, based on how things were looking before the season started, the Dodgers made it sound like their rotation was like the Avengers, right? All this money that was spent, all the acquisitions, the Avengers just gonna go out there and just tear things apart after last year's rotation just fell to pieces. But these guys are not the Avengers. Because if there's one thing we know about superhero movies, when the chips are down, the Avengers don't actually look for ways to make the odds even more impossible. No, the Dodgers rotation is a different group altogether. If things are okay, it appears to be that that's only a clue to try to make matters worse. If these guys had a superhero name, they would be the challengers of the effing impossible. They designated James Paxton for assignment. James Paxton, the only guy who could have passed for an ace over the last 3 weeks, because everybody else, either got injured or is a rookie. Just last week, the Dodgers rotation was Paxton, 3 rookies, and a bullpen game. And Paxton didn't exactly suck. The dude was 8-2. What the hell did this guy have to prove in order to stay on the team? And by the way, his contract was only for $7 million this year. The Dodgers could fill a hospital ward with starting pitchers. Now they make a move where I think the front office needs to go to a psych ward. I have read no fewer than 6 articles on Paxton getting clipped, and not one of these scribes can come up with a plausible explanation. Not one of the Dodger officials said, look, we're getting rid of him, and this is why. Where's the why? Why would you do this? Now, Dave Roberts lauded Paxton for taking the news like a pro, which I suppose means he only asked, "Are you effing kidding me?" 5 times. They did want room for River Ryan on the 40-man roster, but Ryan's a rookie as well. Why Paxton instead of, say, swapping out one of the other 3 rookies? Because another guy has to get cut when Clayton Kershaw eventually returns, right? Very strange. Don't get me wrong, Paxton did in fact have one flaw we can definitely bring up. I'm not saying that he was going out there just flaming guys. He walked a major league worst 48 guys. But hell, last year the Dodgers had a guy in their starting rotation who led the major leagues in home runs allowed. Nobody was looking to cut him. Lance Lynn lasted the year. Last time I checked, walks, while not ideal, are better than giving up home runs. The guy kept the team's nose above water, and he was surrounded by minor leaguers. Now, the Dodgers have 10 days to find a trading partner for Paxton, or else he becomes a free agent. And since the trade deadline is coming up in those 10 days, I would imagine that Paxton will land somewhere else. General Manager Brandon Gomes hinted that might be the case. Quote, "If we didn't see James being part of the stretch run, now would be the best time to see if there's interest there," unquote. True. Very true. But you could also let him pitch until you find a trading partner. There's that. Very confusing move by the Dodgers. Very confusing indeed. Meanwhile, Evan Phillips hasn't officially lost the closer role yet, but Dave Roberts is starting to use that managerial doublespeak to say Phillips might not be closing games now. For much of the season, Phillips was untouchable, but he's allowed 9 earned runs and 4 homers in his last 8 innings. So now, the 9th inning? Nah, those last 3 outs? Nah, that's not important. Dave Roberts told the LA Times that he wants to find, quote, leverage spots for Phillips. Quote, "To be quite honest, I'm going to pitch him in leverage, but I don't know what that looks like." Can I see him still finishing games with the right lanes? Absolutely. But is there a chance I pitch him in the 7th inning in leverage? Sure, unquote. So why is Roberts making up words to describe the situation that he would bring in Phillips? Well, it's relatively easy. Because if Roberts says what he really thinks, it looks like he's inserted a knife into the dude's back in public. They got the message. Walker Buehler has returned from Florida after retooling the mechanics to his windup and having listened to hours of Jimmy Buffett. There was talk about a rehab assignment, but nothing was set in stone. Club officials circled back to Paxton, saying that the return of Buehler and Bobby Miller meant Paxton was expendable, the odd man out, which would make a lot more sense if Buehler and Miller have returned. They haven't. Meanwhile, in basketball, CBSSports.com graded every NBA Western Conference team's offseason, and the 2 LA teams are the worst. Now, in all honesty, I realize people get defensive when you're described as having the worst whatever. I don't have much problem with the Lakers getting a D grade. I really don't. It's not who they let walk. They can get by without Spencer Dinwiddie. And by the way, Dinwiddie signed for a year with Dallas yesterday. It's not about losing Terry and Prince. They wind up adding Dalton Knecht and Bronny James. The latter is obviously what keeps you-know-who in the mix. But the scribe said he'd have given the Lakers an F if Knecht didn't fall into their laps at 17 in the draft. The scribe didn't even mention the likely downgrade at head coach with J.J. Redick until the very last paragraph. So it's not a completely unfair assessment. I do take some issue, though, with one part. The scribe said that the Lakers have no plan. I disagree. I think the Lakers are being patient, like they were 2 years ago when they rebuilt the roster on the fly at the trade deadline. The Lakers will have options then, because teams are going to want to try and get rid of somebody. You could possibly get an upgrade there. But if you're looking at the offseason in just isolation, if you're looking at it in just its own time frame and judging the actions from point A to point B, then yeah, they should get a D. Because that was like holding a farting contest in a 5-star restaurant. Why would you do it? Just the offseason wasn't as bad as the Clippers, though. They were the only team to get a D-. The writer claims that the Clippers have no plan, and once again, I'm going to have to say I disagree. Owner Steve Ballmer specifically said the Clippers were trying to model themselves after the Dallas Mavericks, where you have 2 stars and a lot of defense surrounding them. Now, to be honest, I think that plan is going to be about as effective as the Secret Service protecting presidential candidates, but at least it is a plan. The Scribe wrote that not only did the Clippers send out a ton of draft capital for George, who by the way just left, but then they sent out their remaining draft capital for James Harden less than a year ago. In other words, if you send out that much for James Harden, you have to pay to keep George, even if it puts you over the evil second apron of the salary cap. Moreover, it's not just that they lost Paul George, but as a free agent, they lost him and got back absolutely nothing. Nothing. Now, as for the players that were added, because the Clippers, unlike the Lakers, did make moves, there is no issue with the players that they added per se. They don't suck. But when you consider the injury history of Kawhi Leonard, it is extremely easy to envision the Clippers being competitive at the start, and then when either Leonard or Harden go down with an injury, either one, the team is toast. So yeah, I understand the D-. Last week, I mentioned that the Kings' goaltending situation might not be as dire, at least in the future. For the most part, The Athletic thinks I'm full of turd. Not that they mentioned me by name, of course, but the Kings are said to have the 28th worst goalie situation in the league. And I'll explain their thought process, but I don't think it's that bad. There are some common ground to realize here. The ranking admits that the Kings have 3 legitimate goalie prospects, and that was pretty much all it was getting at. The Athletic simply put a ton of emphasis on the current goaltending situation, which admittedly sucks. It's very bad. Darcy Kemper is coming off the worst year of his career, and the Kings took him and his $5 million a year contract only because that was the price they had to pay in order for Washington to take Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, in terms of how it affects the Kings' salary cap situation, they were blunt. Quote, "The Kemper contract has disaster written all over it," unquote. Now, they do not know if prospects Eric Portillo, Carter George, or Hampton Slukinski will be a star, but they do believe at least 2 of them should make it to the NHL. And we have been talking about this for a while now, but the transfer of center back Mamadou Fall from LAFC to FC Barcelona was made official on Monday. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Can you come up with a reason? What is your rationale for getting rid of James Paxton over with the Dodgers? Who did have the worst offseason, the Lakers or Clippers? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We are talking LA sports here every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.